Is Istanbul safe? I hope I will be able to cast some light on what Istanbul feels like, because I think that's what this is really about. It's not, is it safe, is it not safe? You can look at the statistics, and we will do that, about is Istanbul a safe place to be? Are you more likely to die falling out of bed or eating a hot dog? Maybe, perhaps, but I think what people really want to know, and that's totally understandable, and I certainly did, is how does Istanbul feel? How does it feel to be here? Does it feel safe? Do you feel secure? First of all, I'd just like to say I've only been in Istanbul for 3 days. I'm actually leaving today. It's been a short trip. In that time, I have seen a lot of the city. I've walked 15 miles from one end of the city to the other. I've experienced it. I've spent a lot of time watching things. I've seen every different part of town, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about different aspects of the safety and security of Istanbul. Now, if you actually dig into the numbers of crime and safety and security in Istanbul compared with somewhere like London, there's not a big amount of difference. There's not a huge difference. The population of Istanbul is 15 million people. It's a big city. It's 15 million, and also the 15th biggest city in the world. It's bigger than London, bigger than LA, bigger than Rio de Janeiro. It's a huge city. So it's up there, well into the top 20. I think it's top 15. So, there's a lot going on, and with all big cities, there becomes an element of risk. Now, it's easy and natural to see headlines and then be frightened or put off going somewhere, and I totally get that, and most people have been. The number of people visiting Istanbul in the last couple of years has dropped off quite drastically. It's starting to recover now. The currency's been weakened a lot, which is obviously not a good thing for the Turkish people. However, it does make tourism very attractive because you get more liras for your dollar or for your pound or whatever. So that's a good thing for the country that more tourists are coming in because they rely on it. A recent report by The Economist ranked it as number 40th in the world for safe cities. 40 out of 60. So that's number 1 being the safest, number 60 being the least safe. So it's not exactly like top 10 safest, but it's not like bottom 10 safest as well. If you're from Brazil or like LA or Pakistan or some countries like that, then of course Istanbul is incredibly safe relative to where you've just come from. So it is all relative. But I'm a guy from the UK, and Europe typically has been a safe place to live. So speaking as a British guy, white guy, does Istanbul feel safe? Well, first of all, English isn't widely spoken here, so if you're somebody who likes to know that you will be able to have a conversation with somebody in English if needed, then you might find that a bit difficult or uncomfortable or intimidating. Not really intimidating, it's just a bit annoying perhaps. So you won't find many people who speak English. I've been here for 3 days, and I've heard one couple speaking English. They're an American couple. He was half Turkish, and they were here visiting. Now, I've not heard any English spoken at all, other than the broken English from people that I've talked to in the streets, which they've been really friendly, by the way.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Thanks for your help.
Yeah,
It's very helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
What's your name?
Ines.
Ines.
Yes.
Mike.
Mike.
What's your name?
Taha.
Taha. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Now, when you're looking at Istanbul and you read about you read on the websites, UK website, US website, do not travel, don't go there. It's easy to get a bit put off. You see headlines here and there, and of course, your kind of instinctive fear does kick in. Now, I'd like to quote the words of Seneca here and remind us that we often fear more in imagination than in reality, and that is very, very true. How many people die each year by choking on a hot dog? How many people die each year by falling out of bed? These are things which you need to consider. You know, how many people die in road traffic accidents? The statistics of road traffic accidents in Turkey is somewhat on a par with those of the United States. Much higher than the UK, I'd like to point out, but it's on a similar level as the United States. What else can we compare? Homicide rates. Homicide rates in Istanbul, Turkey, for these years 2003 to 2012 are actually very similar to the United States. Again, much higher than places like the UK and Australia, but they are similar to the United States. So the point I'm making here isn't that the United States isn't safe, but that Turkey, Istanbul, technically speaking, you know, depending on which data you look at, is kind of on a par with some cities. Like Washington DC, for example, has a really high rate of traffic collision, for example. So fear is irrational. You've got to ask yourself, why do you want to come to Istanbul? Why do you want to come here? Lots of people asked me that when I was coming here. It's not an easy question to kind of answer, because I had this desire to see it. I wanted to experience it. I wanted to come here. I wanted to meet some people. As it turns out, I couldn't meet as many people as I wanted to because of the English level, but that's a different story. And I would say, if you want to do it, do it. You know, don't be put off. If you want to come here and live, come here and live. Is it a safe city? It's safer than some, it's not as safe as others. Do you feel safe here? You might not feel safe here. If you're a blonde, white, Swedish girl, you might not feel safe because you will really stand out. If you're like a guy like me, then yeah, you'll feel fine. Like, you might want to be a little bit on alert because there is, you know, the normal crime, and you know, you can read that crime is on the uptrend in Istanbul. Have I experienced any? No. Have I been ripped off by a taxi driver? Yes, but that was only once out of 3 trips I've made. Most of the time I took buses and I walked, so I've not had loads of experience with taxis, but of course there's the usual, you know, con artists out there. I'm going to keep this terse because I don't want to kind of dwell on the point or butcher it too much, but Turkey is somewhere where personally I have felt relatively safe. I felt just as safe walking home through the eastern borough of Istanbul last night as I would have done walking home through London. If anything, I felt more safe, but it's a very subjective, personal thing. Fear is difficult to quantify. It's a very emotional thing. It's irrational. And in the words of Seneca, we often fear more in imagination than in reality. I would say, if you want to come here, see it, because you often regret in life the things that you don't do rather than the things you do. Could something bad happen to you here? Absolutely. Could something bad happen to you where you live right now? Yeah. You know, it's one of those things. Are you more likely to be killed in the back of a taxi in a crash than any kind of more sinister event? Yeah, I'd say you probably are. So try and think with a clear head. It's definitely somewhere that you shouldn't like totally rule out visiting. There aren't many English speakers, kind of white people here. If that influences your choice at all, you will stand out, but I didn't get stared at that much. Like I tended to I try and blend in. I don't like go around kind of flaunting or trying to draw attention to myself, but most people, certainly in the centre, are familiar with tourists, so they're not going to be staring at you too much. I'd say come here, experience it. It's an amazing city. The skyline is unbelievable. There's some amazing architecture. There's loads of little streets. Everyone I've met here has been really, really friendly. A little bit about me. My name's Mike. I'm 29. I'm from the UK. I was a teacher, but I quit my job a couple of years ago to go full-time on YouTube, and since then I've lived in lots of different countries around the world. Today I'm in Istanbul, and this video I hope will give you some insight into how it feels to be here. So thanks for sharing my experience of Istanbul. I hope that's helped you somehow. to make your decision of whether or not to come. You can see more videos there and there. My name is Mike Still, and I hope to see you back on my channel. Leave a comment, by the way, because I do read them, and if you have a question or a comment or an opinion or whatever about Istanbul, then leave it down there and someone might respond and might answer your question if you have one. Okay, until next time, bye bye.